Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Fridays.
Wednesday.
Wait, what day is it? You know why I said Friday? Because I'm leaving today. It feels like the end of the week. The kids are going back to their moms. And yeah, that feels like Friday to me. Check out this mug I got in the mail. Can you see my squirrel mug? Someone said Leslie Vente made the meme, and I can't. It had no name in the box. Who gave me this mug? But I just got it.
Oh,
yeah, it's me riding a giant squirrel, and on the back it says "Read that again." Makes no sense whatsoever unless you listen to the show on a regular basis. But thank you, whoever sent me this mug. Please message me and so I can thank you. I really love it. How are you guys doing?
we're doing fine today, Raghunath.
It's Walk On Wednesday, but before we get to our special walk on, I just got off the phone with Tara from Mayapur, our old friend, and we're discussing.
He's in Mayapur right now?
He's not in Mayapur. He's in Poland. He married a nice Polish lady whom you know, so he's in Poland. But he's an American. He grew up in America like us. So he was a monk when me and Kaustubha were monks, and now he organizes all my tours. And I am so head over heels about this trip because I'm going to Puri this year with our pilgrimage. March 13th to the 25th. Oh no, what am I saying? October 23rd through November 5th. Puri, Rishikesh, Haridwar, and Vrindavan. All holy cities. I'm losing my mind. And I haven't been to Puri in 10 years. And I'm just excited to go back. When's the last time you were in Jagannath Puri?
Oh boy, it's been a long time since I've been to Puri, you know. It may be 20 years or something like that. It's close to 20 years. Maybe over 20 years.
You know what's beautiful about India is every state has a different flavor of their devotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that Puri flavor is so incredible. There's different foods. There's different dances. There's different forms of the Lord. Like where Krishna Drew is from, they all worship Krishna as Ranchorji, or the little kid who's scared. Right?
I suppose
that's
he ran away. Put it.
That's my translation of that. He's scared.
I haven't ever heard it put quite that way.
I'm creative.
He left the battlefield.
He left the battlefield. Krishna left the battlefield. Usually worship God as a hero, and Krishna they worship him as sort of a coward who ran away from the battlefield.
No. He didn't run away like a coward, though. He left the battlefield, but
well, that's what the demons thought.
Yeah, well, only because they're so deluded.
But the way they worship Krishna in Puri is out of control. These beautiful Jagannath deities and beautiful Jagannath artwork. We're going to go to this cool artisan village. Anyway, I'm excited. And we're going to go to the Konark Temple, which I always think is fascinating. It's the deity of the sun god. Now it's like a UNESCO heritage place because the Moguls destroyed it, but it's still gorgeous temple. But I found this out that the deity I think was made of iron and it had this massive magnet as the center, the keystone of the temple. And the deity would levitate. Can you imagine walking to a temple where the deity was just floating in the temple?
It'd be
How
interesting.
incredible. It'd be incredible. I'd be like, I believe in God. I believe in God.
Real.
It's all real. No, it's actually a magnet, but still.
I mean,
Anyway.
what would happen if that magnet must be so strong? It's like if you get near it wearing any metal, it's like you get sucked right up there too.
It does. You lose all your jewelry. A couple people got hung
Don't bring
there.
your computers in there.
It recalibrates your phone. But anyway, that's if you're interested, go to raghunath.yoga to check out more about that. We have, it's actually 75% sold out right now. So if you're interested, want to go to India, it's going to be great. Bobby Marchand is our walk on Wednesday today. Bobby Marchand, my sis from another miss, Barshana Leela, I call her. And she is, we call her the Yin Queen. She's the queen of Yin. Welcome to the show, Bobby. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. And yet we just did this incredible training in Colombia. And we just want to announce that you're doing one up at Super Soul Farm. You want to talk first? You want to talk about the necessities of yin in a post-pandemic world?
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you just said about when you're taking people to India, how each place has a different flavor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Vinyasa yoga and the way that it kind of brings us into the world. With like intention and purpose and a lot of clarity, and the flavors of yin and restorative and nidra, they kind of bring us back in and in a really, really sweet way. And that we kind of need both, especially now when you're commenting on the post-pandemic world. What I notice as I get back into the studios with people is there's like sort of like a deer in headlights, almost like frozen. There's a lot of commentary I'm reading about like social atrophy happening.
Ooh, social atrophy. I'm going to steal that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, I'm stealing it. But the way that yin and these quieter practices, they actually almost give us something to soften into when we're forced to be still, rather than sort of bracing for another impact, which I think has now become the habitual when we get still, is we get sort of still and like, oh, what's going to happen next?
Or like what I do, which is I push through it. That's like my strong.
Exactly.
I push through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I override a lot of feelings sometimes. So.
Yeah, the yin and restorative practice definitely gets us in touch with how much cumulative tension we hold and what to do with it and how to release it and soften it and be curious about it. It's really therapeutic in a very different way, in a beautiful way, than vinyasa. So it's.
So are you teaching this, or have you designed this course this time to be for students? Like, I want to be a student and learn this, or I'm a teacher and I want to enhance my teaching? Or is it a little bit of both? Are you teaching it to teach it? Or are you teaching it to just do it because we're all, emotionally drained?
I think really for both. I know that you and I and Kaustubha are very much on the, like, if you don't come and practice it after you've taught it, then how are you going to teach it? So really, we're all going to practice it. And whether you want to take this information and digest it and then go back and give it. Right. Like, you could be someone who's coming, who's not a yoga teacher, and you come and you take it and you're like, oh, I'm going to share this with my partner or my neighbor or my friend. Like, all the practices are for sharing, and if you have a platform to share, great.
Bobby tends to be a teacher's teacher. Like, teachers take her class, and to enhance their teachings, they take your classes. And
You're very kind.
and add them on. I'm kind, but I'm also honest. And so, yeah, if you're thinking about adding something like this to your own teaching, or you just need an emotional or physical reboot. Some of us like dealt with the pandemic by eating or not doing anything. Like we have all the time in the world. Like I'm not gonna do anything. Anyway, it's an easy in, and another one. I have a good friend I'm really pushing this towards as well, because they've just never done anything with their body ever, and it's a good time for people just to start. It's an easy in to your body if you've neglected your body as well.
Yeah, and it's a different relationship to physicality. We're so used to pushing and making ourselves stronger that this kind of practice helps us cultivate resilience in a way that's different, that isn't it creates a resilient nervous system as well, which we need. And we're going to spend a little bit of time, Mara and I were talking about it last night. We're going to spend some time being together and being quiet so that we can be with each other and like relearn what it's like to be in silence together and softness. We'll sing a lot. It'll be fun, but we'll also spend we'll get to walk around. We'll go on walks.
I found quietly. The best hike place to take you guys to.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've got a great new hike place. Yeah. All right. Well, great. I'm glad I'm going to be a part of it too. I'm going to come and chant a little and do some satsangs. What are the dates?
The dates are June 25th through July 1st.
Awesome.
And yeah, so if you're upstate and you can't make all those dates and you want to take a couple of dates, by all means come into the container whenever you're available to do so.
So that's wisdomofthesages.com. You can find this under Sage Academy, and you can register.
Yeah, and there's also ways to connect with me if you have more questions about the programming, etc., on there as well. And today, or this morning, I'm teaching the third installment of my yin class on Patreon at 9:45.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. My gosh, I'm honored to be part of this.
Love you. Love having you part of our Zoom community. And Mara we all love hanging with you. But Mara's Mara's your little fun bestie.
She's my fun bestie. Frankie and I have to arm wrestle for how much time we get to spend with Mara.
We all love Mara.
Yes, we do.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Bobby. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Wisdom with Sages, go to the Sage Academy if you want to find out more about that training up at Super Soul Farm.
Thank you.
I want to apologize to all the Patreon members because I was supposed to do a Sweet Baby Krishna yesterday at Gopal's house. And I got sucked up into taking the kids to the mall for sneakers. And I just couldn't make it back in time to Gopal's. So I ended up going to Gopal's, and we just went there. I went to Gopal's and read to them. But I didn't, I was late for our 7 o'clock. So Patreon members who came, forgive me. We'll make it up to you somehow. That is all. Kaustubha.
Yes.
Let's get on with the show.
Okay. I'm down.
Okay.
Do we have announcements to make?
Yeah, we have an asana class for Patreon members by Trevor Vaughn at 8 a.m. Bobby's yin offering at 9:45. And then there's Bhakti Recovery Group meeting today at 1 and 9:30 p.m.
Oh, and there's an announcement that I'm supposed to make too.
Oh.
Birthday?
No, birthday. What are you talking about? No, it's that there is a Urban Davy coming up this Sunday, and I'm trying to pull it up. Here we go.
Urban Davy coming up.
Yeah, this Sunday, and Urban Davy is this really great sangha for ladies. That they get. It's like a regular thing, and if you go to the Bhakti Center website and you look up Urban Davy there, you'll find out more about it. But this April 24th, which I assume is next Sunday, from 11:30 to 1 o'clock, their special speaker this week will be Shama Sangita Devi Dasi, and the topic will be Ultimate Life Hacks from the Bhagavad Gita. So that they always do
Ultimate
interesting
life
stuff.
hacks. Ah, that's a
Yeah.
great thing. It's a great way to call it. Life
Yeah.
hacks from the Bhagavad Gita.
Life hacks. Now this devotee Shama Sangita Devidasi, she was born and raised in New York City. She's performed stand-up comedy on hundreds of stages in Canada, U.S., and U.K., and Hong Kong. And wanting to take her craft to new heights, she decided to combine her love for humor and love for Eastern spirituality and founded The Hopeful Hindu, a speaking company that combines stand-up comedy and ancient spiritual wisdom from the East.
I want to join that.
Check it out. Well, you go to thehopefulhindu.com, you can find out more about that. And so she currently lives in LA and works for Jay Shetty, creating conscious media content for the world. So in any case, that's next Sunday. And if you want to find that, you go to the Bhakti Center's website, and then they'll give you the Zoom link and everything for that. But you go to the Bhakti Center's website and you go to the Urban Davy. That'll be under the online programming that they have. So I encourage everyone to check that out. Urban Davy is really nice.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
Okay.
Alrighty. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome of the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus-like feet.
I think
Mara, hit it.
I think we're getting a slight. You're just a little close to the mic, Raghunath, or something like that. It's fuzzing out
all right.
a little bit.
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 14, Text 1.
A new chapter.
Yeah.
Ooh, the story of King Vena. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 14.
So we heard
The great sage Maitreya.
Why don't we get a little background? Right.
Sure, Mr. Rewindy.
So in the previous chapter, there was mention of this King Vena, where we went down this whole family lineage, going down generation after generation of these, rulers who were, kind of praised for their heroism and saintliness and so on. But then came this King Vena, who became a problem. He was like just kind of an anomaly in this, list of really great leaders. But he's kind of the opposite.
Right.
So in this, now we're going to go into more detail about the character of King Vena and the history of how it plays out. And again, we mentioned yesterday, we're hearing about King Vena, who's like an unqualified leader, because he's going to be compared to the qualified leader that's going to come out of this, which we're going to hear about Prithu. And then there'll be a few chapters, maybe 4 or 5 or so, about Prithu, which are great chapters, so much to learn there. Not only about leadership, but about spirituality. But, in this chapter, there's kind of like, what's going to happen is he's going to be a strong leader, but like a cruel and arrogant tyrant. And so on the one hand, he's taking care of like crime, but on the other hand, he's just kind of really just ruining everything else.
Right.
And the way that it plays out is that he's going to be kind of demanding the end of dharmic kind of principles or sacrifice. In other words, I think when we hear about sacrifice, and we've talked about this too, that it can be kind of confusing. When we look at these old movies and stuff like that, they show like these, or even like these modern, shows and stuff like that. They show like this idea of like worshiping a god and offering sacrifices, kind of like it comes off as very
Santeria.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it comes off as very I don't know, primitive.
Black magic or something like that.
Yeah, like some
Also,
kind of
that's like dark connotations or
yeah, dark, but also primitive, like in the sense that you're worshiping some imaginary god, and you have this bizarre
superstition.
superstitious fear that if you don't, bad things are going to happen, and so on. Is there a way that, and so in this, here Vayne is going to demand that all of the Vedic sacrifices stop, and that he's kind of saying like, I'm number one here, so why would you worship anyone else? And so then the question is like, how is this relevant to us nowadays? And
Right.
I think it has to do with like there's two formulas that are going to be juxtaposed here. There's two just different ideas of, they work on a personal level, but here they're being spoken about like on a government level or state level, where one formula is that you just work for prosperity, for material prosperity, without recognizing that there's any kind of spiritual connection between us and the earth and the universe and whoever's behind the universe and each other. And we just kind of, the principle becomes, let's prosper materially. And then there's another formula that's not, you see, because all these questions of like church and state get brought up. I think like with our training and our conditioning, we look at this and say, but isn't it a good thing to separate church and state, right? But it's not exactly what's being said is that everyone has to accept one religion or something like that. But the idea is, can we have spiritual principles that we work with? Are we better off working with or without spiritual principles? And so the second formula would have to do with working in harmony with what supports the universe. Not exactly conforming to a particular religion, but embracing principles that are spiritual. And particularly, those are like kindness and simplicity, right? Like, in other words, if my goal is just material prosperity, I begin to forget about simplicity. And generally I'm going to forget about kindness too, And so, like you take a nation like America right now, which is a nation which, prides itself in the separation of church and state. But, we're moving more and more and more always, towards like, corporations that are just sucking up everything, being run by people that don't value living simply and don't value kindness. And so the question is, how do you instill those values into a society? And that's done through spiritual thought, which is carried out and practiced through spiritual ritual. In this case, you could say, quote unquote, sacrifice. So in any way, that becomes a tension in this. Vayne is going to demand the end of sacrifice. It's not the end. Let's try not to think of it as just like the end of some kind of primitive ritual, but it's the end of like kind of spiritual principles and spiritual thought and spiritual cultivation within society. And he's trying to put it to an end to it. So then the sages have to figure out what to do, because on one hand, the crime is an issue, and we don't want people to suffer because of, thieves and rogues. And on the other end, Vayne is bringing in like a lot of inauspiciousness, by kind of destroying the spiritual culture.
All right, let's dive into that,
right.
Sweet honey.
I think your mic's not working or something like that.
Mara, what do you think?
Maybe now it does. I think you have to turn the mic more towards your, facing down towards the table.
Down there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That sounds better.
Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued. O great hero Vidura, the great sages headed by Brigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect the interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated. It's so funny how that's a pejorative, like independent is a bad thing. But yeah, they want to be
disconnected. Let's say.
Yeah, disconnected, non-regulated. I think it's safe to say we all feel a little lousy after living an unregulated week, right? I like a little regulation in my life.
Sure.
The great sages.
We brought back Brigu here, Raghunath.
Yeah.
Right. He's your big astrologer.
Oh yeah, he's the big astrologer, the Brigu, the Brigu guy, the Brigu readers. The great sages then called for the Queen Mother, Sunita, and with her permission, they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this.
So interesting, right? So they Anga, the father of Vena, just left town, just cut out.
I can't
And,
deal with this kid. I can't deal with this kingdom. It's
Yeah.
over.
And
I'm leaving.
so the mother is yeah, make my son king. But the ministers are all like, and I guess that means the different department heads, right? They're
The
like,
great
"Oh,
sages
man."
were into it, but the ministers, the previous ministers to the king, they were not into it. They
Yeah,
know
I think
him
the
too
great
well.
sages were hesitant, but they didn't see a better solution.
Sure.
And the mother is into it, but the ministers are like, oh my God, we're going to have this tyrant in charge.
Mm. Well, it was already known that Vena was very severe and cruel, and therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there, as rats hide themselves from snakes. So yeah, there is, whenever there's like a powerful monarch of a land, crime goes down because people are living in, it's like a fear-based leadership. Just like if there's a dad of the household who's just really angry, you know, the kids are walking on eggshells. It works. It's not the best way to lead, but it works. And we're not you know, the Vedic culture, it pushes or it endorses, at least previously, this idea of this absolute authority with ministers who are detached and saintly, and a king who's actually practicing dharma. So there is some absolute law and right and wrong to rule, and there's lines, and the lines are, you know, written not strictly in sand. That's where you go to the Brahmins or the ministers, and they just say, you know what, you got to give a little here. No, you need justice here. And so he'd have a whole team of renunciates that he could consult with. But here you have like a powerful king who's living in fear with this authoritarian dynamic. And yeah, the thieves, the rogues, they back down because there
He's
is some
down
like
to kill.
he's ready to kill or
He's been
torture
killing since he was a
anybody.
kid. Right.
Yeah, it's just like, who's that? Who did we say the original Count Dracula was? What was his name?
I
Mara.
don't know.
What do you learn? What do you learn in that private school? He used to, you know what they used to put? He used to put people like impaled on. So you'd go into this village
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler. Thank you. And he would impale people, and you'd go into this village and you'd see all these people that he'd impaled, and you immediately understand, like, okay, I get it.
This is a strong
I get
ruler.
it. There's a strong ruler here. We're not messing around in this town. Okay. A little backstory about Vlad the Impaler. The king ascended to the throne, and he became all powerful with 8 kinds of opulences. Consequently, he became too proud. By virtue of his false ego, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Thus, he began to insult great personalities. That's a problem. That's a problem whenever we get opulences. We think, yeah, I got those opulences due to my hard work, due to my genius, due to my cleverness. And then we get a little arrogant. And arrogance is like the biggest, it's the biggest bridge we got to cross, you know, the biggest gap we got to jump on our spiritual path. Because if we bring that arrogance into our spiritual life, it wreaks havoc on our spiritual life. And so Vayne is going down. When he became overly blind due to his opulences, King Vayne mounted a chariot and, like an uncontrolled elephant, began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and the earth to tremble wherever he went. All the brahmanas were forbidden henceforth to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. That's part of the sacrifice. Thus, King Vayne sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals.
And dharma. Right. So both charity and sacrifice are essential parts of dharmic culture, right? Or spiritual culture. He's snuffing it out.
Therefore, all the great sages assembled together, after observing cruel Vayne's atrocities, concluded that a great danger and catastrophe was approaching the people of the world. Thus, out of compassion, they began to talk amongst themselves, for they themselves were the performers of the sacrifices. When the great sages consulted one another, they saw that the people were in a dangerous position from both directions. When a fire blazes on both ends of a log, the ants in the middle are in a very dangerous situation. Similarly, at that time, the people in general were in a dangerous position due to an irresponsible king on one side and then thieves and rogues on the other side.
Right.
Thinking to save the
So
state
in other
from
words, to just again,
Yeah.
so there's two choices here. We could get rid of this king, but then the thieves and the rogues are going to, flourish, or we can keep this king, but this king is totally irresponsible and is really destroying the spiritual culture and the auspiciousness within the kingdom.
When the sages consulted one another, thinking to save the state from irregularity, the sages began to consider that it was due to a political crisis that they made Vena king, although he was not qualified. But alas, now the people were being disturbed by the king himself. Under such circumstances, how could anybody be happy? The sages began to think within themselves. Because he was born of the womb of Sunita, King Vena is by nature very mischievous. I wonder if Sunita was mischievous.
Well, remember her father had some kind of death personified or something.
Oh yeah.
Something inauspicious about Sunita.
Sunita, yeah. Supporting this mischievous king is exactly like maintaining a snake with milk. So that analogy is like you're giving the snake something healthy, but then the snake's going to bite you with that. It's like taking care of a poisonous animal that's going to use it against you. Now he has become a source of all difficulties. We appointed this King Vena of the state in order to give protection to the citizens, but now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by sinful results caused by him.
Interesting, right? In other words, if you just stand by and allow inauspiciousness to take place, you bear some responsibility. Mm-hmm. But if you actively try to rectify it, then you're freed from that bad karma.
Despite all these discrepancies, we should try to pacify him. Yes. Text 12. The saintly sages continued thinking, of course, we were completely aware of his mischievous nature, yet we nevertheless enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he'll be condemned by the public, and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes.
Okay, so they came up with a plan, right? We're going to speak to him. We're going to try to
persuade
him, yeah. What was the term they used? We should pacify him.
Right.
But if it doesn't work, then what's going to happen is the people are going to be upset. We'll step in and we'll take them out in their own special way.
The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and spoke as follows. The great sages said, Dear King, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence and strength and reputation will increase. Right? They're just trying to sell him on good advice. Those who live according to religious principles, right, dharma, and who follow them by words, mind, body, and intelligence are elevated to heavenly kingdoms, which are devoid of miseries. Being thus rid of the material influence, they achieve unlimited happiness in life. Okay, sounds good. Sales pitch. The sages continued, Oh, great hero, for this reason, you should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of the general populace. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulent and royal position. Okay, that was really sort of delicate. The saintly persons continued more. I'm trying to take this. I'm trying to put myself in a super arrogant king's,
shoes,
a position and see if I would be appeased by them.
Are you wearing a crown?
A crown. Crowns are so cool, aren't they?
Well, you think they are.
They're cool. The saintly persons continued. When the king protects the citizens from the disturbances of mischievous ministers, as well as from thieves and rogues, he can, by virtue of such pious activities, accept taxes given by his subjects. Thus, a pious king can certainly enjoy himself in this world as well as in the life after death. Okay, big promises here. The king is supposed to be pious, in whose state and cities the general populace strictly observes the system of 8 social orders of Varna and Ashram, and where all the citizens engage in worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupations. O noble one, Vena, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation in the supersoul within everyone, is worshipped, the Lord will ultimately be satisfied. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods, who are the controllers of universal affairs. When he is satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, presiding deities of the different planets, as well as the inhabitants of their planets, take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship.
Okay, so let's let's spend a little time with this one. Right? You want to read that again?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods, who are controllers of universal affairs.
Okay, so in other words, first statement is there are beings that are like more powerful than us within this universe, and they recognize this principle that there's a root to all existence, and you're meant to connect to that root. Right? So they're saying they're universal controllers. They all get this principle. Okay. When he is satisfied.
Keep reading. Okay.
When he is satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, all the devas, presiding deities of different planets, as well as their inhabitants of their planets, they take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship.
Isn't that interesting? The people on other planets also worship Lord Vishnu.
Yeah, they're saying, come on, this is like a universal principle. Everybody gets it. Even like what did it call? The presiding deities of the different planets get it. You know, the god of the sun gets it. The god of the moon gets it, right?
Imagine what the food is like on other planets. Imagine what the food is like. Just we were talking about different states in India has different foods and cultures. And I'm just thinking, if they actually worship Vishnu on other planets,
they offer food to him.
Right? They've got food. What do they eat? What's it like? Food on other planets. Yeah. It's an interesting concept, at the very least.
Very interesting.
Come on, Marek.
So why don't we read the commentary? Should I read the commentary?
Read the commentary, Kaustubha.
So all Vedic civilization is summarized in this verse. All living entities, either on this planet or on other planets, have to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their respective duties. When he is satisfied, all necessities of life are automatically supplied. In the Vedas, it is also said, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman, from the Katha Upanishad. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a very famous verse from the Upanishads. It's called Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. That Nityo Nityanam. Nitya means eternal. So it's saying that amongst the Nityanam, amongst all the eternal living beings, that means every soul in existence, right? Nityo Nityanam, there's one eternal soul that's special, right? That's unique. Chaitana Chaitananam, Chaitana, it refers to consciousness. So amongst all conscious beings, there's one central conscious figure, right? Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. All of the many are dependent on the one. So again, like there are many leaves on one tree, but there's one root that nourishes them all, right? There's one root that connects them all, that there's one root that not only nourishes and maintains them all, but is also the connection of each leaf to each other has to do with their shared connection to that root, right? And so what the sages are saying, what this verse is saying, is that all living beings, we have our connection to a root. We're fighting with one another. We're moving through this world confused and harming one another because we don't understand our connection to that root. And the whole dharmic civilization, all of these dharmic principles are, for instance, the sacrifice that's being done, the rituals and so on, they're meant to cultivate awareness of our connection to that root and our connection to each other through that root, right? And so, therefore, you know, the god of the moon and the god of the sun and the goddesses of the rivers and so on and so forth, they all get this and they act in harmony with it. It's the king's responsibility. It's the leadership. is meant to understand this principle and help everyone understand the beauty in it. And when we do that, then we live happily. Now, Vayne he's saying, I don't recognize any root. I'm the root, right? If anyone's the center of this game, it's me.
Right.
And so so out of his own envy, he's getting in there and screwing everything up. So the purport continues. From the Vedas, we understand that he is supplying everyone's necessities. That's that Eko Bahunam Yovidadati Kaman, right? The root, the one, is supplying all the others. He is supplying the necessities. And we can actually see that the lower animals, the birds and the beasts, have no business or profession, yet they are not dying for want of food. They are all living in nature's way, and they all have the necessities of life provided, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Human society, however, has artificially created a type of civilization that makes one forgetful of their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? We forget our connection. We forget that root. Modern society even enables one to forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead's grace and mercy. Consequently, modern civilized man is always unhappy and in need of things. You know, there's a theory here, right? That if we all actually recognize that root, we live prosperous, happy lives. You know, Bhagavad Gita goes there. And of course, it's repeating what's taught in the Vedas. So here the sages are recognizing he's breaking that system. It's not a system of it's not some kind of like, there's this big ogre that needs to be satisfied by our offerings, and we need to humble ourselves before it and you know, like grovel. But think of it in a higher way. Think of it as seeing that root that connects us all, and there's a spiritual understanding, you know, of our connection with each other through that root. And let's recognize that, live in harmony.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Deep, beautiful. Text 21. Dear King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with the predominating deities, is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices in all planets. The Supreme Lord is the sum total of the three Vedas, the owner of everything, and the ultimate goal of austerity. Therefore, your countrymen should engage in performing various sacrifices for your elevation. Indeed, you should always direct them towards offering of sacrifices.
So, in other words, you just remove this process of our connection to that root, and what's going to happen is it's going to bring all kinds of inauspiciousness on you. But if you actually encourage your citizens to engage in that connection, you benefit from it. Like, you kind of get the credit, you know. So this will be great for you. You're actually harming yourself with this. You should try, to think of it this way.
When all the Brahmins engage in performing sacrifices in your kingdom, all the demigods, who are plenary expansions of the Lord, will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired result. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods.
Okay. You know, even I saw text 19. If we go back there, it said, O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of God is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, right? He's the root, right? He's the cause of the original cause of the manifestation, and the super soul within everyone. He's the network that connects one living being to another. So it's like he's the root of the tree, but he's also kind of like, like within the tree, there's like a whole network of like, just like within the body, there's the veins, right? So like
capillaries.
The capillary and all that. So it's he that's connecting one leaf to another. It's he that's connecting every living being as the super soul, and he's the origin of everything. So therefore, that figure becomes central, right? And everyone benefits by recognizing that. You're trying to destroy that recognition, and it's only going to bring in auspiciousness to yourself. It's not going to disappear by your ignoring it, but it's just like you're going to become like a leaf disconnected from it. You'll dry up.
Okay. Text 23. Let's see how King Vena takes that advice, Kaustubha.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's very, very interesting. That unsolicited advice you gave me. Okay, here we go. King Vena replied, "You are not at all experienced it is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintains you, and you are searching after some paramour to worship.
It's a metaphor.
Right? I'm
here,
your,
right?
yeah, you're worshiping God. I'm the one, right?
Mhm.
We give you bread.
In other words, he said, yeah, that's right. I'm the one that's like providing everything.
You're worshiping some God out there. I'm the one taking care of you, you good for nothing renunciate priests. Those who, out of gross ignorance, do not worship the king, who is actually the supreme personality of Godhead, experience happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. You are so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Indeed, your affection for these demigods is exactly like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives all attention to her paramour. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Vayu, the master of air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kubera, the treasurer, the moon god, the predominating deity of the earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of the waters, and all others who are great and competent to bestow benedictions or to curse, all abide in the body of the king. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all demigods, who are simply parts and parcels of the king's body. King Veda continued, because he wasn't done yet. For this reason, O Brahmins, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities, you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no personality superior to me who can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices.
So he couldn't get the message, right? The
He
sages
didn't seem like he could get the message.
the sages came forward and praised him and tried to help him understand. He totally rejected their good advice.
So Maitreya said, thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the request of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned. My dear Vidura, all good fortune to you. The foolish king, who thought himself very learned, thus insulted the great sages, and the sages, being brokenhearted by the king's words, became very angry at him. All the great saintly sages immediately cried, "Kill him! Kill him!"
That's heavy, right?
He is,
Like they don't
he is
normally
the
do
most
that.
he is the most dreadful, simple person. If he lives, he will certainly turn the whole world into ashes in no time. The saintly sages continued. The impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. Text 33. But for King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the supreme personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kinds of fortune and opulence? The great sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decided to kill the king. King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the supreme personality of Godhead. Thus, without using any weapons, the sages killed King Vena simply by sounding high-pitched
It's kind of like what's that band?
Rush?
No. Well, the Rush could be one, but what's that other?
You can't
Iron Maiden,
choose
right?
a ready God. I will choose free will. Everyone just died. Who's that famous singer for the advertisement for Maxell cassettes? It breaks the glass.
I remember that.
It's pretty cool how sound can break glass.
Well, here sound just broke King Vena.
Yeah. Sound. It's so interesting, isn't it? Sound.
Man, there's
changes
food on other planets
changes
too.
Stuff. Sound changes stuff. Breaks glass, can kill people, can liberate people, can cause a war, can cause a divorce. Sound can make you happy, can make you sad.
I think we can finish the chapter today, Raghunath.
All right. Or we can talk about sound a little bit more
We could.
in a real pedestrian way. Okay.
After the sages returned to their
What?
respective
Give me a number.
hermitages.
Give me a number.
35.
35. Thank you. After the sages returned to the respective hermitages, the mother of King Vena, Sunita, became very much aggrieved because of her son's death. She decided to preserve the dead body of her son by the application of certain ingredients and by chanting mantras.
Okay, that's going to become important that the body was preserved, right?
Yeah. You know how they preserved Dasaroth when Dasaroth left his body?
I don't.
Because Ram wasn't there and Bard wasn't there.
Mhm.
So they, they don't put him on ice like they do in America. They just burn the body immediately. They put him in oil.
Put them in oil. Well, again, I've mentioned this before, but if you go to Sri Rangam, the body of Ramanujacharya, who lived 1,000 years ago exactly, is preserved there in
Like mummified?
in herbs, like these herbal kind of blends,
So interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. Preserving body with herbs. Do you have any of those herbs in the kitchen there, Mara?
I don't think so.
Put some on my face. I need to preserve this face before it gets any more wrinkled. Okay. Upon text, where are we at?
36.
36.
36. Once upon a time, the saintly persons, after taking their bath in the river Saraswati, began to perform their daily duties by offering oblations into the sacrificial fires. After this, sitting on the banks of the river, they began to talk about the transcendental person and his pastimes. In those days, there were various disturbances in the country that were creating panic in society. Therefore, all the sages began to talk amongst themselves. Since the king is dead and there is no protector in the world, misfortune may befall upon the people in general on account of rogues and thieves. When the great sages were carrying out their discussion in this way, they saw a dust storm arising from all directions. This storm was caused by the running of thieves and rogues who were engaged in plundering the citizens. Upon seeing the dust storm, the saintly persons could understand that there was a great deal of irregularities due to the death of the king. Without a government, the state was devoid of law and order, and consequently, there was a great uprising of murderous thieves and rogues who were plundering the riches of people in general. Although the great sages could subdue the disturbance by their powers, just as they could kill the king, they considered it improper on their part to do so. Thus, they did not attempt to stop the disturbance. The great sages began to think that although a Brahmin is peaceful and impartial because he is equal to everyone, it is still not his duty to neglect poor humans. By such neglect, a Brahmin's spiritual power diminishes, just as water cracked in a cracked pot leaks out. A cracked pot?
Mhm.
You cracked pot. Crackpot. Do we call people cracked pots or crackpots?
Crackpot.
No ED?
No
Crackpots?
ED. Right.
He's such a crackpot. That doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. We should be calling them cracked pots.
Maybe it just got shortened, Raghu,
Yeah.
Yeah.
over time. What another
Really?
lost.
The sages
lost
decided
custom.
that the descendants of the family of the saintly King Anga should not be stopped. For in this family, the semen was very powerful, and the children were prone to become devotees of the Lord. After making a decision, the saintly persons and sages churned the thighs of the dead body of King Vena with great force. And according to
You okay, Raghunath?
according to a specific method, churning my thighs. As a result of this churning, a dwarf-like person was born from King Vena's body.
Oh, I forgot all about this.
The person born from King Vena's thighs was named Bahuka, and his complexion was black as a crow's. All the limbs of the body were very short. His arms and legs were very short. His jaws were very large. His nose was very flat. His eyes were very reddish, and his hair copper colored. Sounds almost like a pygmy, but has red hair. He was very submissive and meek, and immediately after birth, he bowed down and inquired, "Sirs, what shall I do?" The great sages replies, "Sit down." Thus, Nishada,
Nishada.
the father of the Nishada race, was born. Now, after his birth, this being, he immediately took charge of the resultant actions of King Vena's sinful activities. As such, this Nishada class are always engaged in sinful activities like stealing, plundering, hunting. Consequently, they are only allowed to live in the hills and the forests. Is this like these tribes people in India who don't follow Vedic codes, perhaps, and they are hunters and they're...
It sounds like something like that.
Because Nishada was also in the Mahabharata.
Right.
The Nishada was the... Okay, anyway.
Okay, so there's still one more being meant to be churned out, and we're going to hear about that tomorrow. That'll be King Prithu. So it seems like there was inauspiciousness, but then auspiciousness kind of churned from the body of Vena.
Well, whenever there's inauspiciousness, there's always some light in it, isn't it?
There sure is, Raghunath.
Tomorrow we'll deal with the light. Today we had to take out the dark. All right, great. Mara,
are there any
7:05.
takeaways
We're
today?
overboard.
We are. Work in harmony with spiritual principles.
Mm-hmm.
Embrace kindness and simplicity. Arrogance wreaks havoc in our spiritual life.
Yep.
Don't stand by and let inauspiciousness happen.
Nope.
You are not the root. Recognize and connect to the root. Dharmic principles cultivate connection. And sound can kill.
But not this sound.
Not this sound. This sound
life.
makes me dance. This sound makes me joyful. This sound makes me put my hands in the air. We had a dance party last night. Me and the boys had a little dance party last night.
Which boys?
With Gopal Chandra?
I just posted a picture of my son yesterday. No, when we got home. Yeah, matter of fact, I posted a picture of Tarun dancing. He's lip syncing. Go to my Instagram at Raghunath Yogi. You'll see him.
Did you say
thanks everybody
lip
for joining
stinking?
us? Lip syncing.
Okay.
Maybe he'll be a drag queen. Thanks everybody for joining us here. And thanks for Bobby Marchand, and check out her course she's giving her. Can't call it a workshop because it's a little bit more than a workshop. It's like a little training in upstate New York, and I'm going to help out, do some sanghas and some singing at wisdomofthesages.com and go under the Sage Academy. Patreon members, thanks for all the people that support us. If you want to support what we're doing, you go to patreon.com/wisdomofthesages. We appreciate it. Patreon members, we appreciate you. And Wisdom of the Sages, every day. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's good for you. Kirtan, let's dance.